Some people call me the space cowboy. Yeah. Some call me the gangster of love. Some people call me Maurice, 'cause I speak of the pompatus of love.
What's going on out there, fellow Tightwads, fellow Cal Athletics fans? Been a hot while, 6 unplanned weeks away from y'all. But hey, finally back at you here, right now. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way, to everybody out there that, of course, is part of the Cal Athletic family. And let's go ahead and finally, after an unplanned 6-week break, finally get show number 50 of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill underway. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be tuning in from and whatever time it is that you are tuning in from. It is, of course, Thanksgiving Eve here at Dub 6 Studios located in the Diamond District. And this is, of course, the 30th and current sitting governor of Tightwad Hill, Keith Salminen, coming at you from said Dub 6 Studios in said Diamond District in Oakland, California. Apologies again for the unplanned 6-week break that we ended up taking, where really the only thing we did in that 6-week planned time frame was our 128th big game preview show, and then this was supposed to happen the day after that, and then things ended up not being the case with that. Myself and the missus have been having a little bit of a health issue flare-ups on and off. I'll get a little bit more details on that during my final thought at the end of the show. But great to be here finally with y'all. What, of course, tonight is tonight for me while recording this. This will end up probably being uploaded sometime in the AM on Friday, the 28th. And, of course, as mentioned, got a lot to bring y'all's way, not just with Cal football, but all the other Cal athletic programs that have taken place during the fall semester since the last time we came at you. October the 3rd was the last time we did a regular edition of one of these Bear Raid broadcasts, because, as mentioned, we did do the big game preview show back on November the 15th, which, by the way, was the official 5th anniversary of this show, when back on November 15th of 2020, we started doing the standalone versions of this podcast. Through the advantages and advancements of modern-day recording technology, I will not be alone on this edition of the show, at least when it comes to the football segment here on the broadcast. As when we get into talking Cal football here, I will, of course, also be joined by the 29th and emeritus governor of Tightwad Hill, Tad Dellinger III, who, of course, co-founded the Bear Raid with yours truly. And, of course, also joining up with me as well on those recordings will be Donnie Knucklehead Hudson, who was the first of the other cast members besides me to start doing this show, when we did a few episodes out of the Concord Cottage, where he was staying at the time, out there in Concord. So that's who you have to look forward to besides me on this edition of the show. And, of course, Taddy and Donnie will be joining me during the football segments of tonight's show, which... Speaking of which, before we get on into that, and of course recapping a whole bunch of other Cal Athletics stuff as this evening goes on, a little bit of a heads up, there's going to be one additional break in this edition of the show. Normally we have roughly about 3 breaks on average when we do this. There'll be 4 tonight, as I will be splitting the football segment into 2 segments, which will basically be the first half, pretty much, of tonight's show. So, first segment of the show will the first football segment of tonight's show will basically recap all the October game action that went on. First break will happen after that. Then we'll recap pretty much all the November football action that's happened up to this point. Another break after that, and then we'll, of course, spend the remaining segments of the show covering all the other Cal athletic programs that have gone down since October the 3rd which are October the 3rd, October the 4th-ish time frame, because, October the 3rd was the last time we did one of these broadcasts. Yeah, all the way back in October, that's when we did show number 49. Hey, like I said, stuff came up. I had some health flare-ups. Mrs. had some health flare-ups. I'll get into more details again with that when I do my final thought of the broadcast here at the end. So on that note, let's go ahead and get in. Oh, yeah, one other thing, too, before I also get a little too far ahead of myself. We did it at the end of our excuse me, we did it at the end of our 128th big game preview show and had almost forgotten about it up until I just saw it almost pull up here on the screen. We want to also take this time before we get into talking Cal Athletics talk to, of course, acknowledge an individual who had a big impact on thousands of young men across the East Bay, primarily in Oakland. Pretty sure many of you are aware of this by now, having this happen. If not, Coach John Beam, who coached for over 4 decades at Skyline High and at Laney College in Oakland, California, was senselessly murdered a couple of weeks ago, gunned down in the athletic department building on the Laney College campus, was rushed to Highland Hospital, and then unfortunately passed away in the early mornings of the following Friday after that happened. The individual who, of course, did shot him has been caught, been charged, whole bunch of stuff going on with that, and just sad time, unfortunately, for many out there. And, I'm one of those individuals that happens to be tied into a circle of people that had connections in some form or way with Coach Beam. I got to know him a little bit over the years through my old co-host over on A's Fan Radio, the Boss Man, as Boss knew him through various projects and whatnot that he's done throughout the years. And again, just very huge loss for not just Oakland, but the East Bay community in general. This is a guy that mentored thousands of young men out there from, again, his time coaching at Skyline through his time over at Laney, where he not only was the head football coach for over 20 years, but basically served as the athletic director during that time as well. And he had actually just finished up his last year of coaching the Laney football program last year, 2024, and basically was now full-time into the athletic director role. And some of you may or may not remember that him and the Laney football team were featured on one of the seasons of Last Chance U over on Netflix. Cal football did put out this following statement not too long after the passing of Coach Beam. We are heartbroken to hear of the passing of Coach John Beam. For decades, John Beam served others before himself on and off the field. He exemplified what true leadership is: selfless, intentional, and consistent. John Beam will be missed but not forgotten. Cal football, the East Bay, and the greater Bay Area is in a better place because of Coach Beam. And just like I said, man, the impact being felt from Oakland and beyond because just of all the individuals that this man impacted during his 4 decades of helping out folks in Oakland and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in a moment of silence for the late Coach John Beam. Thank you, Cal Athletics fans and fellow Tightwads. On that note, let's go ahead and get on into the Cal Athletic recap action here on tonight's show. And given where we are at, of course, right now at this point in time of the year, given it's the fall semester, you already know what we're leading off with this at this point in time. And as, of course, I alluded to right at the beginning of the show, this is going to be one of those rare times because of how long it's been since the last time we did a show, the Cal football segment on this edition of the Bear Raid will be broken into 2 parts. So this first segment of 2 of recap and previews of Cal football that will be coming at your way right here, right now. We will be spending this point in time recapping game action that took place from October the 4th through October the 24th. And let's go ahead and rewind the clock back to October the 4th and go back in time with some game recording audio for that matchup in Strawberry Canyon that, of course, took place between Cal and Duke. Thank you, as always, Keith in the present. This, of course, is Keith in the past coming at you, and what currently for us up here on Tightwad Hill is October the 4th. Homecoming game here in Strawberry Canyon as your University of California Golden Bears get set to host the Duke Blue Devils. It is, of course, the 30th and current sitting governor of Tightwad, Keith Salminen, joined here for this portion of the football segment by the 29th and emeritus governor of Tightwad, Tad Dellinger III, and, of course, good old Donnie, Knucklehead, Hudson. Taddy, what's going on, man? How you been since the last time we did our show?
Oh, swell. We just got to control this line of scrimmage tonight. Containment is going to be key to holding their quarterback back. Put pressure on them with the edge rushers. Pound the rock. And be strong on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
Donnie, what have you been up to and what's been going on since the last time we had you on?
Well, I've been drinking with number 7, Tron, down at the bar. No, I'm just kidding. But that kid right there, Mr. Tron, his first name's Tron Grizel. He's a fucking animal. That's why he plays for the Bears. Rock and roll.
Cal, of course, coming into tonight's contest here in Strawberry Canyon, currently with a record of 4-1 after, of course, coming off of that 28-24 victory over Boston College a week ago, which is, of course, we all remember, was one hell of a nail-biter, taking on a team in the Duke Blue Devils that comes into this match currently with a record of 3-2. School, of course, that's known more historically for being a basketball program, but, hey, it is the gridiron. Anything and anything can happen on a Saturday as we got ACC After Dark action getting ready to go down here in Strawberry Canyon in just a little over 40 minutes from now. Taddy, what are your thoughts and takeaways on what Cal needs to do tonight in order to get that W when the 60 minutes run up and are done at the end of this evening?
We have to control the line of scrimmage. We have to contain the quarterback because he's a running quarterback. We have to get some takeaways. We're on the offensive side of the ball. We have to be able to pound the rock and keep it versified, get some shots to tight ends and wide receivers.
Donnie, your thoughts on what we need to do tonight in order to pull out the W here in Strawberry Canyon?
Well, like Big Tad Dad said, this quarterback we're playing tonight, he's squirrely, man. I've been covering him, checking.
Definitely need to make sure that we avoid
teams important, also special teams.
Definitely need to make sure that we avoid the slow start that has happened to us in the last couple games. Obviously, your Golden Bears were able to bounce back from that in the Boston College game, but you obviously don't want to be in a position where you're constantly having to do that game in, game out. On that note, we'll be back with you in what will be only seconds for y'all, but hours for us when we, of course, recap the action of this matchup between your California Golden Bears and the Duke Blue Devils in a few seconds. And welcome back in what has been seconds for y'all, but hours for us up here on Tightwad Hill in a contest that, to put it bluntly, did not turn out at all as we expected it to. Cal looked like they had control early in this one, but after scoring 21 points and holding on to an early lead, things kind of went off the rails for your Golden Bears as they ultimately lose this contest to Duke by a final score of 45-21. Taddy, what the hell happened tonight?
Man, everything just fell off the rails. The containment wasn't there. They didn't control the line of scrimmage. They turned the ball over once. Just mistakes on both sides of the ball.
Yep, they looked good initially, like I said, but just, looked good early, but then the offense shut down. Defense was getting the stops, but then they just completely fell apart. And, again, when it was all said and done, your California Golden Bears taking the loss in this one, 45-21. Halfway point now for Cal at this one with a 4-2 record. Taddy, what adjustments and things do the Bears need to do heading into the bye week before they take on North Carolina back here in Strawberry Canyon on October the 13th?
We just got to come out strong, control both lines of scrimmage, take care of the ball, get takeaways. Take care of the ball and get takeaways.
And on that note, welcome back to the studio, ladies and gentlemen. Normally, of course, I would mention some stuff there at the end before I would come back into that, but it was a bunch of stuff that I said that would be irrelevant at this point in time, given that when this was originally set up, the follow-up show was supposed to happen the Monday after Fleet Week. As, of course, we all know that didn't end up being the case, but also allow this point in time to come back here in the studio and break down some things individually with this game that, as mentioned, looked good initially for your California Golden Bears, but when it ultimately was all said and done, would go off the rails for Cal as they would drop that game on October the 4th in Strawberry Canyon, the Duke, by a final score of 45-21. Cal looked good initially after the first 15 minutes of play, as of course they were up 14-7 after one quarter of play. Second quarter on, though, unfortunately, it would be pretty much Duke that would be in control, as Duke would outscore Cal 24-7 heading into the half. Neither team putting up any points on the board in the third quarter. Duke ultimately would shut out Cal 14-0 in the final quarter of play to ultimately again get the 45-21 victory. Give me a quick second here. Individual scores in this one. Leading passer for your California Golden Bears was JKS. He was 20 of 31 for 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, a long of 30. He was unfortunately sacked 6 times in the contest. Menshaw was the leading passer for Duke, 22 of 30 for 265 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, a long of 33, and he was sacked twice in the contest. Leading rusher for the Golden Bears was Kendrick Raphael, who had 18 attempts for 76 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in the contest. Leading Duke rusher was Nate Shepard, who had 12 attempts for 92 yards. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns in the contest. Leading receiver for the Golden Bears was Trond Grizel, who had 4 receptions for 56 yards. Didn't have a touchdown reception, though. Over on the Duke side of things, you had Quinshawn Brown, who was the leading Duke receiver, 7 receptions for 108 yards and 1 touchdown reception. You also had Cooper Barkate, who had a touchdown reception as well in that contest. Again, final score in that October the 4th contest, Cal losing to the Duke Blue Devils by a final score of 45-21. They would, of course, have a bye week after that, where myself and many others would go out and enjoy the bye week, shake in the Fleet Week action with, even though the government shutdown going on, you had the Snowbirds being able to headline things with that. And then, of course, we all got together again in Strawberry Canyon on October the 17th to see what would happen with Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels coming into town. And on that note, let's go ahead and jump back into the past with myself, Taddy, and Donnie up on good old Tightwad Hill. What has been 2 weeks for us, ladies and gentlemen, and what has been a little over almost 2 weeks for us, but has only been seconds for y'all. We are, of course, back up on beautiful Tightwad Hill in Strawberry Canyon on what is a Friday night for the individuals that will be joining you here to discuss things on this portion of tonight's Cal football segment on the Bear Raid. It is, of course, 30th Governor of Tightwad Hill, Keith Salminen, joined, of course, by some of my regular co-hosts and cohorts from up here on the Hill, the 29th and Emeritus Governor of Tightwad Hill, Tad Dellinger III, and, of course, our resident knucklehead, Donnie Hudson. Taddy, what's been good with you since last time we discussed things here on the show?
It's been swell. You know, baseball season, you know, is a slog, you know, so it's like I've been enjoying the both league championships. The Mariners are ahead right now, 3-2 over the Toronto Blue Jays. The Dodgers are going to sweep tonight.
Donnie, what's new with you since last time we checked in with your knucklehead, crazy, woman-chasing ass?
Been doing a lot of NFL, man. I'm all over the NFL. KKIS Radio, Pittsburgh. Yeah.
What the fuck? Okay, here's the commercial. Bear Raid brought to you by Donnie's Meats. Oh, here's the latest. Donnie asked Jordan Hudson, "Hey, baby, you want a piece of my meat?"
Bear
brought
Raid
to you by Donnie's Meats.
Bear Raid Radio exclusive there, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Jen, so Week off since last time we played when we kind of embarrassed ourselves against Duke. 4-2 coming out of the bye week. What are your guys' thoughts on what we need to do going the rest of the way out during this 2025 college football season?
Cut down on the mistakes. Take care of the football. You have to control both lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. You have to be consistent with your play. Take care of the football. Control both lines of scrimmages, and cut down on the mistakes.
Donnie, your thoughts on changes and adjustments that the program needs to make coming out of the break and sitting at 4-2?
Oh, no, I think they rested up, and I think the coach got all over their backs, so you're going to see some Cal Bears tonight. Don't worry.
I know you got a mixed reaction from some out there in Calgorithm land, where some are still backing Wilcox, some want Justin to be fired. Hey, folks, it's been a minute since we've been sitting at 4-2 at this point in the season, but I can definitely feel the frustration just with a week off. Definitely got to make them adjustments on the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball. But, of course, we're going to ultimately see tonight and the rest of the way out if those adjustments pan out on the gridiron. Speaking of the gridiron, of course, we are sitting here, of course, again on a Friday evening, October the 17th, in beautiful Strawberry Canyon, with Cal getting ready to host Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels. Belichick, of course, not having that strong of a season as he initially and a lot of folks out there thought that they would. What do we expect to potentially play out here tonight between Cal and North Carolina? Starting off, of course, first with good old Patty.
Okay, we have to control both lines of scrimmages on the defensive side of the ball. We have to get our edge. We have to get our edge rush off. We have to get our coverage in there, and we have to take care of the football. No mistakes.
Victorious or not, again. Welcome back in what has been seconds for y'all, but hours for us in a back-and-forth nail-biter tonight here in Strawberry Canyon. California Golden Bears victorious over North Carolina by a final score of 21-18. Taddy, some of your thoughts and takeaways from what you saw here tonight in this little back-and-forth battle between these two ACC opponents.
The fact that we were on top of all sides of the ball. Special teams, defense, and offense. We were on top of things most of the game. I mean, they controlled the line of scrimmage. They ended up with takeaways. North Carolina came with short several times on fucking short down, so it's like it was an all-around victory.
Donnie, your thoughts and takeaways in this one?
Well, I got scared there for a second when Sagapula took a hit on the sideline. That fool, he looked like Garoppolo. But overall, the defense was good, but it was a nail biter. I can't tell a lie. I'll take the win, 5-2.
Cal improving to 5-2, as Donnie mentions. Before we go back to the studio, Donnie, final thoughts from you, because I know you're getting ready to roll on out of here. Your final thoughts.
Have a Jägermeister, mix it with Dr. Pepper, and party.
Taddy, your final thoughts before we could return control of things back to yours truly in the present.
I'm happy for the win. I just think that we're on schedule because we're 5-2 earlier than what we have been the last couple seasons. So yeah, I'm really happy with the win.
And welcome back to the present, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, once again, I have to cut off a bunch of irrelevant stuff that I would have recorded after Taddy got done talking there. Again, victory for Cal in that contest, back and forth contest on that October the 17th in Strawberry Canyon, but Cal pulling out the win over North Carolina by a final score of 21-18. Cal getting the majority of their points in the first half of that contest as they would go up 14-7 after the first quarter of play. UNC would add on a field goal to go down 14-10 against Cal heading into the half. Coming out of the gate in the second half, Cal would outscore the Tar Heels 7-0 in the third quarter. The Tar Heels would get 8 points to Cal's 0 in the fourth quarter of play, and would have had an opportunity possibly that we forgot to mention there in the recording. Play late where had they had not gotten a stop The Tar Heels probably would have won the contest, but late charge with the Tar Heels heading down to score, and the boys forcing a fumble on defense to get the ball back and ultimately lock down things with, again, Cal picking up the victory over North Carolina on October the 17th by a final score of 21-18. JKS leading scorer for the Golden Bears in that one, 21 of 39 for 209 yards, 1 touchdown, no INTs, had a long of 23 and was sacked twice in the contest. Leading Tar Heels passer was Gio Lopez. He was 19 of 35 for 167 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, a long of 37. He was sacked once in the contest. Leading rusher for your Golden Bears, Kendrick Raphael, who had 22 attempts for 85 yards, 1 touchdown in the contest. You also had JKS score 1 rushing touchdown as well for the Golden Bears. For the Tar Heels, Benjamin Hall was their leading rusher, 14 attempts for 74 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. You also had Devon Gaz score a rushing touchdown for the Tar Heels as well. Leading receiver for your Golden Bears was Jacob DeJesus, 13 receptions for 105 yards, 1 touchdown reception. On the Tar Heels side, Kobe Paysauer was their leading receiver, 6 receptions for 101 yards and no TDs. Again, final score in that contest, Cal victorious over North Carolina by a final score of 21-18. Following week would take the Golden Bears out on the good old road for a matchup at was it Lane Stadium in Blacksburg, Virginia, as they would throw down with the Virginia Tech. I believe that's the Hokies. Trying to remember that. Again, just trying to get used to all these damn ACC opponents now they were facing at this point in time. Cal and Virginia Tech throwing down back on October the 24th. Road game, of course, that means myself and the gang gathered once again at the good old Kingfish Pub over there on the Oakland-Berkeley border, which means this will be one of those games where we don't have any pre- and post-game audio recordings available to y'all. That means we'll just be going straight into the action that went down between these two teams. Cal getting outscored by Virginia Tech 10-3 in the first quarter before they would score 17 points to Virginia Tech's 0 in the second quarter. Of course, Cal heading in with a 20-10 lead at the half. Virginia Tech, though, would score 10 points to Cal's 0 in the third quarter of play to tie the game up again. Both teams would score 7 points each in the fourth quarter, which would force an overtime period to go down, with both teams scoring 7 points each again in that first OT. This one would require 2 OTs to ultimately play out. Unfortunately, Cal unable to get anything on the board on their side of things in OT, while Virginia Tech was able to put up 8 and ultimately take this contest in double overtime over your Golden Bears by a final score of 42-34 in double overtime. Individual stats in this one: leading passer for your California Golden Bears, JKS, 24 of 39 for 286 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 38 longest pass, and unfortunately he got sacked 3 times in the contest. Kyron Drones was the leading passer for Virginia Tech, 9 of 18 for 119 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, a long of 44. He was sacked 3 times in the contest. Kendrick Raphael leading the rushing attack once again for the Golden Bears in this one, 20 attempts for 75 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns in the game. Over on the Virginia Tech side, Macarius Hawkins was their leading rusher, 21 attempts for 167 yards, no touchdowns in the contest. So you had quarterback Kyron Drones score 2 rushing touchdowns for Virginia Tech in that one. Jacob DeJesus leading the Cal receiving corps in this one. Again, 8 receptions for 86 yards. He didn't have a touchdown reception, though he had Mason Minnie catch the lone touchdown reception for a Golden Bear receiver in this one. And on the Virginia Tech side, you had Tyke Heath, the leading receiver for Virginia Tech, 4 receptions, 64 yards, and 2 touchdowns, while Aiden Green added in a touchdown reception again. Once again, California losing in double overtime in this one to Virginia Tech by a final score of 42-34. And on that note, let's go ahead and take our first break of the night here on this 50th edition of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. We come back at you. It will be the second part of tonight's Cal football segment as, of course, we recap game action from them from November 1st through the most recent 128th edition of the big game, and, of course, preview the upcoming finale against SMU on the 29th. And, of course, we still got a whole bunch of other Cal athletics action to talk in the segments after that. Don't go anywhere, folks. Show number 50 of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill will be right back at you here in a bit. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Tightwads, fellow Cal athletics fans, as we continue on down the road here on this 50th edition of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. 30th and current sitting governor of Tightwad, Keith Salminen, coming at you in person, and of course on some of these recordings that we have for the football segments at Dub6 Studios located in the Diamond District of Oakland, California. Also being joined through recording technology by the 29th and emeritus governor of Tightwad, Tad Dellinger III, and of course good old Donnie Knucklehead Hudson. Let's continue on down the road tonight with the Cal athletics talk and part two of tonight's two-part Cal football segment, as of course with 6+ weeks of action to recap with not just Cal football but all the other Cal athletic programs that have been going down since we did show number 49 back on October the 3rd. The football segment getting broken up into two parts tonight. So let's go ahead and pick up back on the action on November the 1st as we of course go back to the University of California, and let's go back into the past once again with me and the guys up in Strawberry Canyon. Play at 4-0. Rough week, of course. 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 Play at 4-0. Here against Virginia this afternoon in Strawberry Canyon.
Well, last week they just said they weren't able to close it out. I mean, the defense got weak down the stretch. But now it's time to move forward and talk about our opponent today, the Virginia Cavaliers.
Not drop as many passes, not miss. Golden Bears do a lot mentally better on the field. Not drop as many passes, not miss. Golden Bears do a lot mentally better on the field. Not drop as many passes, not miss. Golden Bears do a lot mentally better on the field. Not drop as many passes, not miss. Golden Bears do a lot mentally better on the field. Not drop as many passes, not miss. Golden Bears do a lot mentally bold. Not drop as many passes, not miss. Golden Bears do a 3-point difference at one point going into the final minutes, but just until the end, 3-point difference at one point going into the final minutes, but just until the end. After the third, Donnie Knucklehead Hudson, of course, come at you here post-game in Strawberry Canyon. Taddy, your thoughts on what unfortunately played out here this afternoon?
We just didn't get after Morris as much as I thought we should have been able to. Like I said at the hours ago, we had to pressure him much, and the edge rush wasn't there, and the linebackers didn't pick up, So that's what happens. I mean, when you don't have an edge rush that's consistent, and the linebackers don't come up the middle, you're going to get that kind of performance.
Knucklehead, your takeaways from this afternoon's contest here in Strawberry Canyon.
Well, first of all, Taddy took the words right out of my mouth. We got to get an edge rusher next year, hell or high water, because we don't rush quarterbacks. Even though somebody pointed out we had 13 sacks going into the season, Dude, we need 5 every game to be in first place. So, till we can get the defense fixed, Cal ain't going nowhere. Sorry, this is Donnie Knucklehead, bad mood. We got beat by 10 points again. Sorry.
3 games left to go. We'll have to ultimately see what happens at this point. Before we head back to Dub 6 Studios and me and the president, parting thoughts from my boys here heading into next weekend's contest on the road against Louisville.
We just got to play a better game all the way around.
Tad Dellinger, ladies and gentlemen. Donnie, your thoughts heading into next week's road contest against Louisville?
Don't wear red. Keep all your red clothes in the closet for a couple weeks. We're going to have to go out there and play like we're in the Kentucky Derby to beat them. They're pretty good.
Welcome back to the President and Keith Salminen in the President. Apologies there, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, for some issues there on the audio, both for the pre and the post game there on that contest that went down on November the 1st between California and one of Tad's other alma maters. Tad, of course, having alumni status at not just Cal, not just USC, his original alma mater being the University of Virginia, and Cal losing that contest against Virginia in Strawberry Canyon on November the 1st by a final score of 31-21. One of the things I tried to do was all the audio recordings that I had built up here as I put them into the computer and tried to compress them down, but it looks like as they got compressed, they got jacked up somehow, so it looks like I'm just going to have to do things how I normally did, which is just play the recordings directly off the recording program that's in the phone that I used also play the soundtrack music on. But anyway, let's go ahead and break down what happened in this one, which again Cal ended up losing by a final of 31-21. UVA outscoring Cal 10-0 in the first quarter of play. Both teams putting 7 points each up on the board basically the rest of the way out in the contest. So if you think about it, man, only difference is just Cal needed to put up more than just 7 points in each quarter, and maybe they would have had a chance in this one. But ultimately, when it was all said and done, Cal losing to UVA by a final of 31-21. JKS leading the passing attack again for the Golden Bears, 19 of 30 for 213 yards. No touchdown passes, 2 interceptions, a long of 30. He was sacked 4 times in the contest. Chandler Morris was the leading passer for Virginia, 24 of 36 for 262 yards. No touchdowns, no INTs. 38 was his longest pass of the game. He was sacked twice in the contest. Leading rusher for the Golden Bears, Kendrick Raphael, 13 attempts for 47 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns in the contest. Over on the UVA side, Jamari Taylor was their leading rusher with 21 attempts for 108 yards. He had 2 touchdowns in the contest. And Eli Wood also had a rushing touchdown for Virginia in this one. Cal's leading receiver was Trond Grizzle, 8 receptions for 80 yards, no touchdown receptions. You had Kendrick Raphael get the lone touchdown reception for the Golden Bears in this one. Leading rusher for the Cavaliers was leading receiver for the Cavaliers was Trell Harris, 5 receptions for 68 yards, no touchdown receptions, as UVA pretty much did all their scoring damage on the ground in this one against the California Golden Bears, as Cal again drops this one by a final score of 31-21. Road game for your Golden Bears after that the following week on November the 8th, which of course means myself and the gang would be back once again at the Kingfish, which means another game with no pre- and post-game audio, which might be a good thing given the crap that happened with the compression on this. I'm hoping that audio isn't all jacked up for the big game audio when I get to that here in a little bit, but that will be coming y'all's way in a little bit. We obviously still got to do the matchup between the Golden Bears and the Louisville Cardinal that went down in Louisville, Kentucky on November the 8th. Let's go ahead and look at the breakdown of how things played out in that one. Both Cal and Louisville would score 7 points each in the first quarter of play. Cal would outscore Louisville 10-6 in the second quarter to go up by a score of 17-13 at the end of the half. Louisville would outscore Cal 7-6 in the third quarter, and then would outscore them 3-0 in the fourth quarter to, of course, force the game to go into overtime. Louisville would score 3 points in their attempt in the first overtime period. All Cal needed was a touchdown, and would you know it, with good old Keith's luck, a rally piss of the Kingfish brought Cal a touchdown in OT to pull out a 29-26 win in overtime over Louisville for your California Golden Bears back on November the 8th. JKS leading the way again as leading passer for the Golden Bears in this one. 30 of 47 for 323 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, a long of 39. He was sacked, though, 3 times during the contest. Louisville's leading passer was Miller Moss, who was 20 of 38 for 203 yards, no touchdowns, an interception, a long of 40, and was sacked 3 times as well in the contest. Kendrick Raphael leading things on the ground for the Golden Bears, 19 attempts for 83 yards and 1 rushing touchdown in the contest. Leading Louisville rusher was K-Wan Brown, who had 14 attempts for 136 yards, no rushing touchdowns scored. Duke Watson and Miller Moss each individually had a rushing TD for the Cardinals in that contest. Excuse me. Leading receiver for Cal, Jacob DeJesus, 16 receptions for 138 yards, 1 touchdown reception. You had Landon Morris also pulling in a touchdown reception for the Bears as well. Over on the Louisville side, Colin Lace, who was their leading receiver, 4 receptions, 60 yards, and no TD receptions, as none of the receivers ended up with a TD in that one. Final score again in that contest, Louisville falling to Cal in a single overtime by a final score of 29-26. And oh, by the way, with that, of course, being the 6th win of the year for your Golden Bears, and of course making them bowl eligible for the 2025 season. Going into the big game, of course, with a record of 6-4, and a good solid win too against a Louisville team that was ranked and was 7-1 at the time. He dropped them to 7-2 with that overtime victory. So hopes are high, thinking that, hey, and obviously we, with how Stanford had been playing, we'd all had expected that we were going to most likely dominate and dog walk the Ferd in the big game. But just, hey, pick up against a team that was 7-1 going into that contest, and you take them down in overtime after losing tough, heartbreaking back-to-back games against Virginia Tech and Virginia. Hey, I'll take that one. Bye week, of course, for your Golden Bears after that November the 8th contest. And that, of course, would set up the 128th showdown between your California Golden Bears and the hated Stanford Cardinal, the 128th edition of this long-time college football rivalry, going down, of course, this year over in Palo Alto. And that's where we head via recording technology in the past to join up with myself and Tad Dellinger III right here, right now.
And coming at y'all's ways in a bit, of course, is the pregame portion. Roughly from what we're big game coming at y'all's ways in a bit, of course, is the pregame portion. Roughly from what we're big game coming at y'all's ways in a bit. Big game coming at y'all's ways in a bit, of course, is the pregame portion. Roughly from what we're big game coming at. Of course, many of you out there already watched our big game preview show and saw some of our thoughts from what we shared out here. Teddy, your thoughts heading into tonight's contest?
All we had to do is take care of the ball, fucking control both lines of scrimmages, and let's get the axe for the 5th time in a row.
I know you gave a final score prediction on the Big Game show, but let's go ahead and reiterate that for folks that may not have watched our Big Game preview show.
Look, the Bears have won more fucking games down the line that are tough games. So it's like, we're gonna fucking dominate both lines of scrimmage because we're a lot more talented team, and the fact that this is going into the 5th fucking big game where we've had the axe, we're gonna do it.
Big game is usually always either a back and forth contest or a dog walk, depending on who is the opponent in this. I predicted it will be a dog walk. I predict that your California Golden Bears will be on top. I didn't give a prediction during our big game preview show. I will give that to you all now. Cal will win this game by a final score of 42-14. Will that end up being the final? Will Stanford end up pissing us all off? Find out here in a little bit when we come at you with our post-game coverage. It won't be seconds for y'all, but hours for us here down on the farm.
Go Bears!
The Stanford Cardinal victorious in this contest as they ultimately lose to the Stanford Cardinal. Victorious in this contest as they ultimately lose to the Stanford Cardinal by a final score of 31. Lose to the Stanford Cardinal by a final score of...
They played below the standard.
Definitely a game where obviously we should have performed better. We unfortunately didn't. That's ultimately, at the end of the day, is what it is at this point. Tad, final thoughts from you before we turn things over to me and the president with score outcomes from this contest.
We just have to perform better. I mean, they should have never lost to Stanford. That's it.
That's your thoughts from Tad. Let's go ahead and head back to the studio with me and the president for final score outcomes on this contest between your California Golden Bears and the Stanford Cardinal.
My apologies again as we come back to you here in the present, taking back over things from myself in the past. And I have to also make sure I have this stupid Bears Still Suck song play in the background that I promised our good friend Eric Mad Dog Madsen I would end up playing if they ended up winning. 31-10 final as Cal loses the axe to Stanford in that one. And again, apologies for the audio getting screwed up yet again on that stuff. And also apologies for what audio you could hear myself and Taddy. Several sheets to the win as, of course, we enjoyed probably a little too much Oskies and other alcoholic shindigs and whatnot over there. And, yeah, I know I'm playing a song that's more associated with Packer fans clowning on Chicago Bears fans. But, again, I promised my boy Eric that if, unfortunately, the outcome that ended up happening would go down, that I would play this on the damn show in the background behind me recapping this. Cal was up early 3-0 after the first quarter of play. And then pretty much from the second quarter on, it would all fall apart for your Golden Bears as Stanford would outscore Cal 14-7 heading into the half. They would outscore Cal 3-0 in the third quarter and then outscore them 14-0 in the fourth quarter of play to ultimately win the contest by a final score of 31-10. JKS in this one was 33 of 49 for 269 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, along a 24. Was sacked, unfortunately, 5 times in the contest. All right, I love you, Eric. That's enough of playing that goddamn Bears Still Suck song on this fucking broadcast. We already know that, yeah, unfortunately, that they do end up sucking as a result of what happened in that one. Let's see here. Where was I? Leading passer for Stanford was Elijah Brown, 10 of 20 for 123 yards, 1 touchdown pass, no interceptions along a 34, and he was sacked only once during the contest. Kendrick Raphael, the leading rusher for Cal, 15 attempts for 47 yards. No rushing touchdowns in this one. JKS actually scoring the lone rushing touchdown in the contest, in the lone TD period for your Golden Bears in this one. Stanford side of things, Micah Ford was their leading rusher, 29 attempts for 151 yards, 1 rushing touchdown for him. Cal leading receiver, Tron Grizzle, 9 receptions for 104 yards, no touchdowns for him. No Cal receiver ended up with a receiving touchdown in this one. C.J. Williams, the leading receiver for Stanford in this one, 5 receptions for 76 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. As, again, your California Golden Bears losing a contest that many of us, even our boy Eric, a longtime Stanford fan, figured that Cal was going to win this one. That not being the case, Cal dropping the 128th big game and losing the Axe back to Stanford by a final score of 31-10. Following day, of course, the news coming out that one Justin Wilcox, just waiting for things to load with that image over here on my end, on the recording side. There we go. Justin Wilcox, the day after losing the big game, gets canned after 9 seasons with the California Golden Bears, a move that many had been wanting to see come for a couple of years now at this point in time. Ends up with a record of 48-55 during his 9 years coaching the University of California. Many people, again, as I mentioned, wanted this gentleman gone a while ago. Took losing the big game ultimately for Ron Rivera and company to cut Wilcox loose. And, very unfortunate. I mean, 9 years, under 500 record, long run, it really isn't going to cut it. Many of us thought that, maybe he could have gotten a chance to maybe do a little bit better, maybe some different things go on with player personnel and other coaches around him. Maybe that's not the case, but, ultimately, regardless if you supported this guy or you didn't support this guy, at the end of the day, losing the big game is kind of going to be a situation where with a record like that, I hate to say it, you're going to end up getting your butt canned at this point. So interim coach the rest of the way out for your California Golden Bears is, again, Justin Wilcox fired after 9 seasons and a record of 48, and 55 following that 31-10 loss against Stanford in the big game. And one game left to go in this crazy season for us Cal football fans, and that's, of course, in what is basically just a little over a day and a couple hours from now, as, of course, on November the 29th, it's the regular season and home finale for your California Golden Bears, as they will be hosting they'll be hosting SMU up at Strawberry Canyon for this finale on November the 29th. Kickoff is at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for this one. We'll, of course, be getting together for our final pregame tailgate up on Tightwad Hill at the Tightwad 50 Club for the 2025 season at about 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, again, SMU versus Cal this Saturday, November the 29th. Pregame tailgate at the Tightwad 50 Club begins at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And kickoff, of course, is at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Those of you watching from home, the game will be on ESPN2. You can also catch the game on the radio on KSFO 810 AM. And you can also purchase tickets still online if you want to come and catch this game in person in action. Final game of the year. Of course, would like to see them end things on a high note with them still being bowl eligible to try to help things out, maybe potentially end the season with a 7-5 record versus another 500 season. We'll have to ultimately wait and see how it is, because SMU is obviously a team that isn't to trifle with pretty much at this point. We'll ultimately see what ends up going on with that. Cal, of course, heading into this contest against SMU on Saturday. They currently are 6-5 with a 3-4 conference record, riding a 1-game losing streak after losing the big game to Stanford. They are 3-2 at Memorial Stadium this season. They are an even 500 away from Memorial Stadium at 3-3 this year, and have yet to play a neutral site contest in this current season. Speaking of records and whatnot, let's go ahead and take a look at what the current standings look like in the ACC for football at this point in time. Tad's good old first alma mater of Virginia sits on top of the conference right now with a conference record of 6-1 and an overall record of 9-2. SMU technically tied for first place in the conference with Virginia, and of course they will be facing Cal this weekend. SMU is 6-1 also. They have an overall record of 8-3. Also at 6-1 in the conference with an overall record of 8-3 as well is Pittsburgh. Georgia Tech is fourth on the list right now now with a conference record of 6-2 and an overall record of 9-2. Duke sitting at 5th right now with a record of 5-2 in the conference and an overall record of 6-5. Miami at 5-2 in the conference and an overall record of 9-2. Wake Forest, they're 4-3 in conference play, 8-3 overall. Clemson is 4-4 in conference play, 6-5 overall. Louisville is 4-4 in conference play, 7-4 overall. North Carolina State 3-4 in the conference, 6-5 overall. Your California Golden Bears also 3-4 in conference play, 6-5 overall. Stanford is 3-5 in conference play, 4-7 overall. Virginia Tech 2-5 in conference play, 3-8 overall. North Carolina 2-5 in conference play, 4-7 overall. Florida State is 2-6 in conference play at a 5-6 overall record. Syracuse 1-6 in the conference and 3-8 overall. And sitting at the bottom of the ACC with an 0-7 conference record and a 1-10 overall record is Boston College. And that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up part 2 of tonight's Cal football segment. And, of course, that will wrap up things overall on tonight's show for the football segment of things here on this, this 50th edition of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. And bear with me here as things on my recordings are moving a little bit slow. It is time now to take our next break of the night here on this 50th edition of the Bear Raid, as, of course, we still got a whole bunch of other Cal athletic sports to recap before we call it a night. We come back at you for the next segment of the show. We'll check in on things with Cal Rugby, Cal Women's Soccer, Cal Men's Soccer, Cal Women's Basketball, and, of course, Cal Men's Basketball. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back at you here in a bit on show number 50 of the Bear Raid, presented by Tightwad Hill. Welcome back, folks. Show number 50 of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill continues on down the road here at Dub 6 Studios in the Diamond District of Oakland, California. 30th and current sitting governor of Tightwad Hill, Keith Salminen, coming at you from Dub 6 Studios, as, of course, joined with the help of recording technology by 29th Emeritus Governor of Tightwad, Tal Dellinger III, and, of course, good old Donnie Knucklehead Hudson. Again, apologies for the audio issues with some of those recordings during the Cal football segment. Kind of had some on and off issues with the laptop being picky on how it does things. I tried compressing all the recordings that we had, of course, of the football segment so I could have them all on here, not having to bounce back and forth between things, but obviously that didn't work, so I'll just have to stick to how I did things normally with that. On that note, let's go ahead and continue on down the road here on this evening show with Cal Athletics Talk, as we, of course, check in now finally with the first of many other programs here in the fall semester for Cal Athletics that we haven't checked in with since we last did a show back on October the 3rd outside of Cal football. And the first of many that will be touching bases here as we continue on down the road here on tonight's show is, of course, the good old Cal Varsity Rugby program. And, of course, what they have been doing since last time we came y'all's way here on the show. Mainly a whole bunch of tournament play for the Cal Rugby program going down since the last time we came at you. West Coast Sevens going down back over at Stanford, which means we'll be rewinding the clock all the way back to October the 11th as we begin the recap action for this athletic program for the University of California. First opponent that Cal would face off against in that West Coast Sevens at Stanford would be the University of Stanford. Whole bunch of us joking, I wonder if Stanford will forfeit again against Cal. Stanford did not forfeit that contest, but they did end up getting molly-whopped by Cal over there in Palo Alto on October the 11th by the final score of 60-0. Cal would play a couple matchups over the course of the day on October the 11th over there at Stanford. So that game against Stanford was just the first of many that would go down. They would have a contest against Oregon that they would win by a final score of 24-10. That, of course, would be, I think that was the B team that played that matchup against Oregon. Could be wrong. They ended up playing Oregon again and shut them out 43-0. They would then take on UCLA, beat them by a final of 35-10. Take on Grand Canyon, defeat them 38-5. They then would take on San Diego, defeat them 47-7. They would then take on San Diego again and win by a final of 31-5 before taking on Grand Canyon in the finale of that West Coast Sevens at Stanford and winning by a final of 55-0. October the 25th would see them partake in the West Coast Sevens down in SoCal, with this all being played down at the Oceanside Sports Complex in San Diego. First matchup of the day on October the 25th would see them take out San Diego State by a final of 44-5. They would take down UCLA by a final of 41-0. They would defeat Long Beach by a final of 34-5. They would take down San Diego 53-0, and then they would win that West Coast Sevens tournament in SoCal with a 43-0 shutout of UCLA on October the 26th. November the 20th was the most recent matchup that went down for Cal Varsity Rugby as they took on UC Santa Cruz and easily defeated them by a final score of 99-0. And, of course, nothing else is on tap for Cal Rugby until January of next year when, of course, on January the 10th, they will finally play their first home game of the 2025-2026 college rugby season. January the 10th at Witter Rugby Field, they will be hosting Cal Poly. They have not yet announced a start time for that, and I'm pretty sure we won't know a start time for that until probably sometime near the end of December, beginning of January. But January 10th, you'll be able to catch us over on the Witter Rugby Field side of Tightwad Hill, as Cal Rugby right now currently only has 4 games on the docket, 4 home games on the docket for the regular season. So we'll have to wait and see, of course, obviously, if they make it into the postseason or maybe if anything gets added between now and then. But first home game will be on January 10th. Cal Rugby currently has an overall record of 19-2. They have yet to play a conference matchup. They are on a 17-match win streak at this current point in time. Technically have a 1-0 home record. I'm guessing maybe they counted one of the games down at Stanford or somewhere, because they technically did not play a home game on here yet, but for some reason they gave them a home game win on here. My guess is actually it should be a neutral site record of 19-2, but who knows? But yeah, anyway, that is what looks like for things right here, right now, currently for the Cal Rugby program, who, again, they won't be playing again until January of next year. Let's go ahead and head on over to the good old soccer pitch and get a little football recap action underway here on this edition of the Bear Raid. We'll go ahead and check in first on things with the women's soccer program and see how they ended up finishing off their 2025 soccer season, because, of course, women's soccer, and I want to say the men's soccer program actually has already wrapped up by now, so we got a lot to recap with the women and the men. We're going to go ahead and obviously start off with things with the women's side first. Going back to October the 5th for a road contest that went down at SMU, the Lady Golden Bears dropping that match by a final score of 2-1. October the 9th would see them play to a 2-2 draw in Berkeley against then number 1 ranked Virginia. They would then stay in Berkeley for a matchup a couple days later on October the 12th and take on Virginia Tech at Edwards Stadium. Cal picking up a 1-0 victory in that one. October the 16th would see them head on down to Florida to take on Miami. Cal winning that one by a final score of 2-0. October the 19th would see the Golden Bears in Tallahassee, Florida to take on then 7th-ranked Florida State, a contest that would see Florida State and Cal play to a 2-2 draw. October the 30th would be the final final game of the year for the women's soccer program as they would finish the season at home on October the 30th at Edwards Stadium against then number 2 ranked Stanford. Cal unfortunately getting blown out by the Cardinal in that one as Cal would fall to Stanford by a final score of 8-2. Lady women's soccer program would finish off the year with a record of 8-3-8, a conference record of 4-2-4. They would finish they finished off the season with a 1-match losing streak. They were 5-2-3 at Edwards Stadium this year, 3-1-5 away from Edwards Stadium, and they did not play a neutral site contest at all in 2025. We'll go ahead and stay on the soccer pitch and now move over to the men's side of things and go ahead and take a look and see how the season finished off for the men's soccer program at the University of California. So again, 6 weeks worth of action to quickly recap here. We'll actually begin things for the men on October the 3rd because I'm not 100% sure if we had recorded the show before or after that game for the men's soccer team took place on the road, coincidentally, just like with the women. They were taking on SMU, but the men, of course, taking them on October the 3rd. Men's soccer dropping that contest to SMU by a final score of 4-0. They would come back to Berkeley on October the 11th to take on Wake Forest in a contest that they would ultimately lose by a final score of 2-1. They would get back into the win column with a victory on the road at Radford that they would win by a final score of 6-1 in a contest that would see 5 different Golden Bears score a goal in that 6-1 victory. They would stay on the road for a matchup on October the 26th at Virginia Tech that they would unfortunately lose by a final score of 3-2. They would defeat Stanford in their final regular season contest of the season at home on Halloween as they took down the Ferd 1-0 in that contest. They would get a chance to actually partake in the ACC championship throwdown as they would try to make their way into the finals and try to make a run towards an ACC soccer title. They would take down Duke to begin play in the ACC championship throwdown, defeating Duke on November the 5th by a final score of 2-0. They would take down Pittsburgh in Berkeley on November the 9th by a final score of 1-0 before ultimately getting bounced from a chance to play for the ACC soccer title on November the 13th when they took a loss against Taddy's alma mater of Virginia, losing that one by a final score of 2-1 with the men's soccer program getting bounced in the semifinals of the ACC championship. Cal Soccer finishing off the 2025 men's soccer season with a record of 8-8-2, a conference record of 2-5-1, finishing the year with a 1-loss streak. They were 2-3-2 at Edwards Stadium this year. They were 6-4 away from Edwards Stadium, and they ended up finishing off the year at neutral sites with a record of 0-1. So tip of the cap, of course, to the soccer programs on both the men's and women's side. Women's program not making it to the playoffs. Unfortunately, the men making it to the semifinals before ultimately getting bounced when it was all said and done. Hopefully, we get to see a little bit of a better run from both of the soccer programs next season. All right, let's switch on over from the football pitch to the hardwood and take a look at what the basketball programs have been up to for the first time here on the Bear Raid this year. As of course, we've been away since the basketball programs began play. And we'll go ahead and start with, as Donnie likes to call them, the Lady Golden Bears. Let's go ahead and see what Cal women's basketball has been up to so far to begin the 2025-2026 NCAA women's basketball season. They began the year on the road in Paris, France, where they would end up losing a matchup to Vanderbilt by the final score of 74-65. November the 9th would see them back home for their first game of the year in Berkeley against Sacramento State, a contest that the women's program would win by a final score of 69-52. November the 11th, they would stay at the Haas Pavilion for a matchup against the University of the Pacific that the Lady Golden Bears would win yet again again, taking that contest against Pacific by a final score of 60-52. November the 15th, they'd be in Berkeley yet again for the Raising the Bar Invitational, powered by Cal, picking up a 69-44 victory over Charlotte on November the 15th. They would also pick up a victory against Harvard by a final score of 76-65 on November the 16th as well in that tournament. November the 20th at the Haas Pavilion again, they would host St. Mary's and pick up the victory in that one by a final score of 70-62. Hoop Fest going on down in Frisco, Texas, back on Monday, November the 24th, to see a 68-63 victory for the Lady Golden Bears over Grand Canyon. Their most recent matchup going down on November the 26th, so yesterday, a matchup in Frisco, Texas against Auburn that they ultimately lost by a final score of 58-50. Upcoming contest for Cal women's basketball between now and the next edition of the Bear Raid, which is tentatively scheduled for December the 7th. They have two games going down. The ACC SEC Challenge on December the 4th, 6 p.m. in Columbia, Missouri, as they'll be taking on Missouri in that contest. Again, that's on December the 4th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. December the 7th at 2 p.m., so the same day that we do the next edition, or that we tentatively plan to do the next edition of the Bear Raid. The women's program will be back home at the Haas Pavilion for a 2 p.m. tip-off against the San Jose State Spartans. So again, road game December 4th at 6 p.m. as part of the ACC SEC challenges. They will be taking on Missouri at the Mizzou Arena in Columbia, MO, and then, of course, December the 7th, they'll be back at the Haas Pavilion, take on San Jose State at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Cal women's basketball is currently 6-2 overall. They have not yet played a conference game, one-game losing streak at this point in time. They are undefeated so far at the Haas Pavilion this year with a record of 5-0. They have yet to play an actual road game so far this season, and in neutral site contests so far, your Lady Golden Bears have a record of 1-2. All righty, we'll go ahead and stay on the hardwood, but switch over to the men's side of things and go ahead and take a look and see what the men's basketball program has been up to since they got underway, and of course what they have on tap between now and the next edition of the Bear Raid on December the 7th. First game for the men going down on November the 3rd against CSU Bakersfield. That, of course, happened at the Haas Pavilion. Cal won that contest by a final score of 87-60. November the 6th, they would be at the Haas Pavilion again to take on Wright State, win that contest by a final score of 77-67. November the 10th, Haas Pavilion again, Cal State Fullerton coming into town. The Cal program winning that one by a final score of 93-65. November the 13th, out in Manhattan, Kansas, would see the men's basketball program for Cal finally take its first loss of the year as they would lose to Kansas State on the road by a final score of 99-96. November the 18th, the Empire Classic benefiting Wounded Warrior Project going down at the Haas Pavilion against Presbyterian. Cal winning that contest by a final score of 67-57. They then would take on Sacramento State on November the 21st at the Haas Pavilion as part of that Empire Classic and defeat Sacramento State by a final score of 91-67. November the 25th, the most recent action for your California Golden Bears in the final game of that Empire Classic, being played across the bay at the Chase Center in San Francisco. Cal defeating 18th-ranked UCLA in a nail-biter back-and-forth game that, again, the Golden Bears would win by a final score of 80-72. Upcoming contest for your men's basketball program between now and the next edition of the Bear Raid. Just like the women's program, the men's program has two games on tap between now and December the 7th. The first of those two games going down on December the 2nd at the Haas Pavilion as Utah will come coming to town for a 7 p.m. tip-off, and then they will be back at the Haas Pavilion again on December the 6th to take on the University of Pacific at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Men's basketball currently has an overall record of 6-1, have yet to play a conference game, 3-game win streak for the men's Golden Bears. They are undefeated so far at the Haas Pavilion this year with a record of 5-0, only 1 game away from the Haas so far with a record of 0-1, and they have a neutral site record thus far of 1-0 at this point in time. That wraps up the Cal recap action for this segment of the show, but it is definitely far from the action that we need to still discuss here before this one is all said and done. When we come back, of course, here on show number 50 of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill, we will check in on the latest with Cal Volleyball, Cal Field Hockey, Cal Men's Water Polo, Cal Women's Swim and Dive, and, of course, Cal Men's Swim and Dive as well. Strap on something, go get a smoky smoke, hold on to your butts. We'll be right back at you here in a bit on show number 50 of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to show number 50 of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. 30th and current sitting governor of Tightwad, Keith Salminen, coming at you from Dub 6 Studios located in the Diamond District of Oakland, California. Joined, of course, via recording technology by the 29th and emeritus governor of Tightwad, Tad Dellinger III, and, of course, Donnie Knucklehead Hudson. Let's continue on down the road with the Cal Athletics recap action here on tonight's shows. Of course, we still got 2 segments worth of Cal Athletics talk to discuss and cover for stuff that went down since October the 3rd, the last time we came at you, and today, and of course preview what other these athletic programs have on tap between now and the next edition of the show on December the 7th. Obviously, we're going to have a mixture of programs in here that have been going on since we started doing things and have wrapped up. In some cases, some programs that started up since we've been away and will be continuing in the spring, and maybe even a chance of programs that have started up and won't be doing anything again for a while. You have to just wait and see how things go on with that. On that note, let's continue the Cal Athletics recap and check in on what Cal Volleyball has been doing since the last time we came at you. This is one of 2 sports that actually will be going back to October the 3rd to begin the recap action for. Men's soccer being the first, even though, again, we did a show on October the 3rd, but I want to say both men's soccer and the volleyball program had not yet started when I recorded that show, so just to cover things, making sure that I get those matchups in here. So beginning with October the 3rd for Cal Volleyball recap here on the Bear Raid. On October the 3rd, Cal Volleyball was at the Haas Pavilion hosting then 6th-ranked Louisville. Cal losing that one by a final score of 3-0. October the 5th would see the volleyball program stay at the Haas Pavilion for a matchup against Notre Dame that they would also lose by a final of 3-0. October the 10th, road trip to Syracuse, another L, unfortunately, for the Cal volleyball program, as they would fall 3-1 against Syracuse. They would continue that road trip to Chestnut Hill on October the 12th to take on Boston College, another 3-1 loss for Cal Volleyball in that one. They would finally get back into the win column on October the 16th, back in Berkeley at the Haas Pavilion with a 3-2 victory over then 14th ranked Miami. They would then unfortunately fall right back into the losing side of things on October the 18th when they would take a 3-2 loss against Florida State. October the 24th, another loss, unfortunately, on the road for Cal Volleyball as they would fall 3-1 to Georgia Tech at Georgia Tech. They would also take a loss on October the 26th at Clemson by a final of 3-0. Another 3-0 loss on Halloween on the road at Wake Forest. November the 2nd, they would be in Raleigh, North Carolina to take on North Carolina State. And would lose that match by a final score of 3-1. They would come back home on November the 7th to host Duke in Berkeley, and finally get back on the winning side of things with a 3-0 victory. November the 9th would see them take on then 15th-ranked North Carolina in Berkeley, and even though they had just picked up a win in their previous match by a final of 3-0, they would drop this one against North Carolina by a final of 3-0. November the 14th in Berkeley against then 10th-ranked SMU, it would be another 3-0 loss for Cal volleyball. November the 16th in Berkeley, they would take a 3-1 loss against then third-ranked Pittsburgh. November the 19th would see them take a loss on the road at then fifth-ranked Stanford by a final of 3-0. They would then lose to Stanford again in Berkeley several nights later on November the 23rd by a final of 3-0. November the 26th in Berkeley, they would finally pick up a 3-0 victory against Boston College. They have one more match left on their schedule before the season's all said and done. We, of course, will recap that match on the next edition of the show. That final match going down on November the 28th as Cal Volleyball will end their season on the road at 10 o'clock in the morning against Duke. Cal Volleyball, heading into their final matchup of the year, has a record of 8-21. They are 5-14 in conference play. One match win streak at this point in time. They are 6-8 at the Haas Pavilion. They are 2-10 away from the Haas Pavilion, and they have a neutral site record of 0-3 in this 2025 season. So, man, not very good year for the Cal Volleyball program. Hopefully they can close out and end the season on a high note with a W on the road tomorrow. We'll have to wait and see if that ends up being the case or if it ends up pretty much being how it's been the entire season, and which basically, unfortunately, has been a season of disappointment for the Cal Volleyball program. Let's go ahead and stay in Cal women's sports and move over to field hockey and see what the Cal field hockey team has been up to since last time we came at you. I do feel like this is actually one of the sports that probably has wrapped up by now, but we'll go ahead and find out here in a little bit if that is the case or not. We go all the way back to October the 10th to begin the Cal Field Hockey recap here on this edition of the show. October the 10th at Underhill Field in Berkeley, California, would see a 2-1 victory over Boston College. They would stay at Underhill Field for a matchup on October the 12th against Syracuse that Cal would win also by a final of 1-0. October the 17th, Cal Field Hockey would head out to Louisville to take on Louisville. They would lose that match by a final of 3-1. Another road match on October the 19th in Winston-Salem, North Carolina against Wake Forest. Cal would lose that matchup by a final score of 6-2. October the 24th would see Cal Field Hockey back in the state of California, but not at Berkeley, as they would be on the road in their home state for a matchup at UC Davis that Cal would pick up a 2-1 victory in. They would come back to Berkeley the day before Halloween to finish up the regular season with a matchup at Underhill Field against Stanford that they won by a final of 3-1. They would then get bounced up to begin things in the ACC championship run as they would lose an opening round matchup on November the 4th to fourth-ranked Duke by a final score of 7-1. Cal Field Hockey finishing off the year with an overall record of 8-8, a conference record of 3-5, finished off the season with a one-match losing streak. They were 6-2 at Underhill Field. They were 2-5 away from Underhill Field this year, and they finish off the year with a record of 0-1 at neutral sites. So 500 season for Cal Field Hockey, a little bit better than last year. I seem to remember from when we were recapping some of the field hockey matchups on here, it seemed like more often than not the field hockey program was getting mollywopped last year. So nice to see a 8-8 improvement. Definitely be great to see if they can improve beyond that when they begin play again in 2026. Let's go ahead and move into the pool for these next three sports that we will be recapping here on this segment of tonight's show. The first of those three aquatic sports will be the men's water polo program, as we take a look at what has been going on with them since the last time we came at you, and if they have anything left between now and the next edition of the show, or if they have wrapped things up for the season. For the water polo program on the men's side, we begin things with them back on October the 4th as they were at Berkeley's Spiker Aquatic Complex for a matchup against then number 1 ranked UCLA. Cal falling to UCLA in that contest by a final score of 14-7. October the 5th, they would be in Berkeley again to host then 3rd ranked USC. Cal would get the victory in that one by a final score of 13-11. October the 17th, they would be at the Avery Aquatic Center at Stanford to take on then 4th-ranked Stanford, Cal dropping that one by a final score of 12-8. October the 23rd, they would be back in Berkeley at the Spiker Aquatic Complex to host 4th-ranked Fordham, who Cal would end up defeating in a close one by a final score of 15-14. October the 24th, they would be in Berkeley again as Cal men's water polo would host Air Force and defeat them at the Spiker Aquatics Complex by a final of 25-10. November the 1st would see the water polo program head down to SoCal for a matchup at then number 1 ranked USC. Cal would lose that contest by a final score of 12-9. They would stay in LA for a matchup on the following day, November the 2nd, at the Spiker Aquatic Center in Los Angeles against then number 2 ranked UCLA. Cal would lose that matchup to the Bruins by a final score of 18-12. November the 15th, they would take on Stanford in Berkeley. Stanford was ranked 3rd at the time on November the 15th, excuse me. And Cal, unfortunately, would lose that contest to Stanford by a final score of 13-9. MPSF championships were then on the docket next for your Cal men's water polo program. They would win the first matchup of that series on November the 21st against number 5th ranked John Hopkins by a final score of 26-4. They would then lose on November the 22nd to number 1 ranked UCLA at Stanford by a final score of 11-9. They then would lose against Stanford on November the 23rd by a final score of 15-12. They, of course, have action here for the NCAA championships for men's water polo. That doesn't start until December the 4th, so we'll have to actually wait and see, I guess, if men's water polo will be doing anything in the NCAA championship or if their season is done at this point, and all of those will be happening over at Stanford as well. Men's water polo 15-8 overall, 1-5 in conference play, 2-match lose streak, 6-2 in Berkeley, 2-4 away from Berkeley, and they are 7-2 in neutral site contests. Staying in the pool, we're going to go ahead and do some swim and dive recap here in a bit on tonight's show. We're going to go ahead and start off first with what the ladies swim and dive program has been up to, and then, of course, we'll take a look at what things are looking like over on the men's side of things here in a bit. Women and men's swimming and diving starting off during the time that we had last came at you here on the show. October the 10th shows them being at the Triton Invitational in La Jolla, California. They ended up finishing first out of the 5 teams in that 2-day tournament that went down on October the 10th and October the 11th down in La Jolla, California. Next matchup for them after that would be the ASU Stanford Tri-Meet, which went down from October the 24th through October the 25th at the Spikers Aquatics Complex. Well, for their first one, the first matchup on the 24th, I'm guessing here, went down in Berkeley at the Spiker Aquatics Complex. Cal defeating 18th-ranked Arizona State 233-107, and then they would lose to Stanford on the back end of that tournament, 190.5 to 147.5. They then had a matchup that was scheduled to go down on November the 7th against Stanford as part of the Stanford Triple Distance, but I'm not seeing anything listed on here for that. And November the 7th is the most recent action for the women's swim and dive program. They do have action going down, though, between now and the next edition of the Bear Raid, as they will be at the Minnesota Invitational going down in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and hosted by the Minnesota Golden Gophers. That, of course, will be going down December the 3rd through December the 6th. And let's see here. Women's swim and dive, 1-1 overall. No conference matchups yet. One match loss streak. 1-0 at home. 1-0 away from home, and no neutral site contest yet for the women's swim and dive program. Staying in the pool, staying with swim and dive. We're just going to switch over now to what men's swim and dive has been up to so far, and what, if anything, they have on tap between now and the next edition of the Bear Raid. They also took part in the Triton Invitational down in La Jolla, October the 10th through October the 11th, and ended up winning when everything was all said and done with that. They also would take part in the Stanford, Arizona State Tri-Meet that went down October the 24th through the 25th. Both of the matches for the men's program going down on the 25th, as they would lose to third-ranked Arizona State, 198 to 139, and then they would also lose to eighth-ranked Stanford on the 25th of October by a final of 205 to 134. November the 7th, taking on Stanford at the triple distance meet, and again, same thing, they don't got anything listed on here for what happened with that. And upcoming action for the men's swim and dive program, just like the ladies swim and dive program, they will be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, partaking in the Minnesota Invitational, hosted by the Minnesota Gophers, December the 3rd through December the 6th. So we'll have recaps on things for both the swim and dive programs on the next edition of the show. Men's swim and dive, currently 1-2 overall, no conference record, 2-match lose streak, 0-2 away from Berkeley, or 0-2 at Berkeley, 1-0 away from Berkeley, and no neutral match ups, no neutral site matches, no neutral match site records yet at this point in time for them. And that wraps up this segment's Cal Athletic Talk. But hey, we still got one more segment left to go here on this edition of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. When we do come back at you here from the final break of the night on this 50th edition of TBR, we will take a look at the latest that has been going on with Cal women's golf, Cal men's golf, Cal women's tennis, Cal men's tennis, Cal cross country, and Cal track and field. And of course, then we will get ready to get on out of here with my final thoughts of the night. Smoke them if you got them, and go hurry up and do whatever you got to do, because the final segment of show number 50 of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill will be coming your way here in a bit following this final break of this evening's broadcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Tightwads, fellow Cal Athletics fans, let's go ahead and get this final segment out and underway and out of the way, so that way everybody can go and enjoy the rest of their day. Show number 50 of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill, getting ready to get its final segment thrown at y'all's faces here from Dub 6 Studios in the Diamond District of Oakland, California. It is, of course, the 30th and current sitting governor of Tightwad Hill, Keith Salminen, coming at you, joined, of course, through the help of recording technology by the 29th and emeritus governor of Tightwad Hill and Donnie Knucklehead Hudson. Let's go ahead and get ready to wrap things up here with this final segment of Cal Athletics Talk here on tonight's show, as of course we will be checking in with the golf programs at the University of California. Checking in first with the lady golf program, and we begin on let's see here. Where are we picking up with action on them? As, of course, we see what they've been up to since last time we did things here on the show back at the beginning of frickin' October, all the way up to now here in November, and what, if anything, they have on tap between now and the next edition of the show, on which is slated to go down on Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, December the 7th. We pick up on action at the St. Andrews Links College Gate, which was going down October the 13th through October the 15th. Give me a quick second here to pull up and see how things went down. Of course, St. Andrews, Scotland is where this was going down. The Golden Bears ended up shooting 500 par as a team to complete stroke play in that tournament after the ladies finished even par in the round that went down in the first day of the tournament. Cal finished 19 shots ahead of runner-up Princeton, which the Bears ended up facing off against in the final day of the tournament in match play at the Old Course in St. Andrews. Sophomore Claudia Lara Miravantes, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing these names, had her second best consecutive round at 2 under par and finished stroke play at 4 under, which was good for 4th place overall. Senior Andorra Liu went 3 under and completed stroke play with the same score, 1 spot behind Miravantes. Junior Jasmine Calere and freshman Michelle Wood tied for 7th at even par for the tournament, giving the Bears 4 players in the individual top 10. Let's go ahead now and take a look at how things played out in the match day portion of that, which was day 3 of the tournament. Cal taking on Princeton University in that, and the Lady Golden Bears winning match play by a final of 4.5 to 1.5. Next set of rounds of golf action going down after that was October the 27th through October the 29th. The Nania Invitational being hosted by the University of Hawaii. Let's go ahead and pull up the recap on that real quick. Give me a second here as that ends up loading real quick. Let's see here. The women's team ended their fall season course, as that ended up being it for them all the way back in October, with a strong finish at that tournament in Hawaii, as the competitive 11-team field shot 3 under par as a team, marking the 2nd consecutive tournament they have gone under par. Cal hadn't strung together back-to-back tournaments of par or under since the Molly Collegiate Invitational and Ron Moore Intercollegial Gate in September and October of 2023. The Nania Invitational featured 4 teams ranked in the top 25, including all 4 teams that finished ahead of the Bears. Cal also placed 1 spot ahead of number 17th UCLA, which was 3 shots behind the Bears at even par. Cal shot even par as a team in the final day of the tournament to hold steady at 3 under for the tournament. Freshman Michelle Wu, who led the Bears in scoring average during the fall, was Cal's top individual finisher in a tie for 26th place. She carded a 1 under par 72 on the final day of the tournament to finish at even par. Number 1 Stanford ended up winning the tournament title with a 44 under par. And the Bears, of course, on the women's side, will be off until the springtime, and they won't be getting play in the spring semester until February. So quick little run there at the Lady Golden Bears golf program, who again we'll catch back up with them in the spring, and probably will also go back over things with them overall with how they did in the fall whenever we do our fall semester and review show near the end of December. Let's go ahead and stay on the links with the golf programs and go ahead and check out and see what the men ended up doing since the last time we came at you, and see if it's a similar situation, if they got anything going on again between now and the next time we come at you here on the show. And pretty much kind of looks like a similar thing. They also played at the St. Andrews tournament over there in St. Andrews, Florida, October the 13th through the 15th. We already told you how the men ended up, or how the women ended up doing. Here's what the men ended up doing. The men's golf team carded a 7 under par in the final day of the tournament and pulled away to win the stroke play portion of the St. Andrews Link College Gate in Scotland. After shooting even par as a team Monday, after shooting even par as a team the first day of the tournament, the Golden Bears finished at 7 under and beat runner-up Princeton by 3 strokes. Cal and Princeton advanced to the final day's match play championship round, which took place at the famed Old Course at St. Andrews. Junior Charlie Bundy shot a 4 under 66 on the second day of the tournament and ended up in a tie for second place individually at 4 under for the tournament. David Hugh, who's a senior, placed 4th at 3 under par, and freshman Zhao Chang was tied for 7th at 1 under par. In match play, which took place on the final day of the tournament on October the 15th, Cal would end up losing to Princeton by a final of 4-2. The Preserve Golf Club Collegiate is the next bit of action that would go down for your California Golden Bears. That took place on October the 27th and October the 28th at the Preserve Golf Club over in Carmel, California. Give me a quick second here to pull up things on that. Senior Daniel Howe shot a 3 under par 69 on that final day of the tournament and finished as the California Golden Bears men's team top performer in the team competition as the Golden Bears closed out play in that tournament. Howe carded 5 birdies and finished 1 under for the tournament, which was good for 29th individually. Freshman Trevor Cox, playing as an individual, was Cal's top overall finisher at 2 under par after shooting 1 over on the second day of the tournament. Cox was 25th in the individual standings. Sophomore Matthew Mieto shot an even par 72 on the second day of the tournament and finished 4 over for the entire tournament. The Bears placed 11th as a team at 14th over par in the contest. And that's it for the fall for the men's golf program. Just like the ladies, they won't resume play until the spring semester, but unlike the ladies who won't begin play again until February, the men will resume play on January the 26th. That moves us away from the golf courses. Let's head over to the tennis courts right now and see what the tennis programs have been up to since the last time we came at you here on the show. We'll go ahead and, of course, start off with the ladies' tennis program first, see what they have been up to, and then obviously as well see what they have on tap, if anything, between now and the next time we come at y'all. Aggie Invitational going down on October the 10th through the 12th at UC Davis in Davis, California. Give me a quick second here as I pull up things to see what ended up going on with that. Wow, I hate this stuff. They never have this thing on here. I'm going to have to start writing this down for the recap stuff because they have the men and the women tied up on things. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to mention where they've been. I'm going to have to hold off on recap stuff until I guess we do things on the next edition of the show. The women, October the 10th through the 12th, they were at UC Davis for the Aggie Invitational. ITA Northwest Regional Championship was on October the 16th through October the 21st. October the 26th through November the 2nd, you had the M25 Harlington in Texas. October the 31st through November the 2nd, the Jake Kramer Invitational. November the 6th through November the 9th, the ITA West Section Championship. And then you have the NCAA championships for, wow. All right, you know what? This is what I'm going to do for this because, I don't know, you would think that they would have easier access for this, for the tennis stuff, but it looks like basically men's tennis and men's tennis, it looks like pretty much was along the same schedule. I'm not seeing any recap stuff on here, so, unfortunately, I guess I'm not going to be able to get that one on you. That's going to be one that we're just going to have to, unfortunately, skip over for this one, but I'll have to, I guess, sit down and write actual notes and make sure to include what the tennis programs did on things with the show on the semester and review portion of things. In that case, let's go ahead and get into the last two sports that we're going to be recapping here on tonight's edition of the show, and that, of course, is going to be the cross-country and track and field programs, as both of those have been going on since last time we came at you here. Cross-country and track and field, of course, obviously being programs for both the men and the women at the University of California. We'll start off with cross-country first, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at what the track team has been up to. Cross country, let's see here. October the 10th at the Bill Dellinger Invitational in Eugene, Oregon. That's where we pick up things with them. The men finished 7th. The women placed 5th in that invitational. Bronco Invitational, October the 18th over in Sunnyvale, California. Don't even got any recap stuff on here with this. Wow. Then they had the ACC Championship on the 31st and the NC November. Wow. So not really a whole bunch of that either for things with the cross-country stuff. Okay. So much for that one right there. I guess it's another one why I may have to, write stuff down. In that case, from cross-country to track and field. Let's see what's been going on with that since the last time we came at you here. Wow, track and field actually has not started up yet, so this is going to be, the track and field. Yeah, track and field has not started up yet, but they will have had one shindig in the works between now and the next time we come at you, and that will be the Sharon Collier Danville season opener on December the 6th in Boston, Massachusetts. So that's where the men's and women's track and field programs will be starting off the year at. So hopefully they'll be better at putting up their recap stuff than the cross country and the tennis programs were. So, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up this segment's Cal Athletic Talk, and that actually ends up wrapping up the Cal Athletic Talk period for tonight's edition of the show. As always, for the latest information pertaining to the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill, be sure to check things out at a'sfanradio.com/the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill. Check us out, like us, follow us at our original social media home on Facebook at facebook.com/Tightwad Hill Official. Follow the Tightwad Madness on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call the damn bird app. Me personally, I still call it Twitter. You can follow us over there at Tightwad Hill 23. And of course, the only place you can catch our show broadcast, because I am done with Twitch after one of the streamers from Twitch was harassed at an event, and things were not handled well with that, and the fact that just a lot of crap has been going on with Twitch lately. The only place you can catch the Bear Raid now is on YouTube at youtube.com/A'sFanRadio, and that is, of course, where you can catch the next edition of the show, show number 51, slated to go down on Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, December the 7th, on youtube.com/A'sFan, or youtube.com/A'sFanRadio. Damn, getting all tongue-twisted during my final thoughts and whatnot. And speaking of which, that finally brings us to my final thoughts of the evening on this show. As always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Bear Raid, and thank you for bearing with us for an unplanned 6-week break from doing the show. Usual flare-ups that I have every now and then. Y'all already know the drill with me. I got back issues, other health stuff that happens on and off from my time in the Marine Corps and just dinging up my body during my 40 years on this third rock floating around the sun here in the Sol system. It's been mainly more stuff going on with my wife, Christy, who I think I may have mentioned this earlier on in the year when we began things with this year's editions of the Bear Raid. My wife was diagnosed with AFib not too long ago, and that's been kind of flaring up a little bit on and off for her the last several weeks since we did the last show, and that's really been the main thing that has held me up from doing the Bear Raid since October the 3rd. It's just wanting to keep an eye on her and making sure that she does everything that she needs to do to get that heart rate under control. They just had to up her meds recently as a result of things going on, so hopefully that's something that will counteract these issues with her. Otherwise, they'll have to do a procedure and put something in there that would have to shock her heart if things don't change with that. She had to make the decision this week that unless things drastically change with this in the future, that she will most likely never be going up the Tightwad Hill again. It's unfortunate. It sucks, but, don't blame her, and I fully understand her that it's not worth risking going up there and having a heart attack, marching up a hill for game day. And, I mean, it was already a point where she had been only going up there maybe once every couple of years because of issues with plantar fasciitis, but just now with this, for her, it's not worth it. She definitely plans on coming to watch parties that we do in the future. So depending on what she's got going on, she definitely plans on being at our bowl game watch party for whatever bloody bowl game we end up playing in this year, and we'll hopefully know what's going on with that sometime in the coming weeks. May not know by the time we do show number 51, but hopefully at some point in December we will know one way or another who we were playing. So that's pretty much what's been going on. Again, apologies for having not done a show in over 6 weeks, minus that 128th big game show. But, hey, I've had to keep my priorities focused on things at home and making sure that my wife's all right and she's taken care of. But the one thing I've loved about y'all, regardless for if it's y'all that have been following the Bear Raid since we started doing it 5 years ago, or even all of y'all that are following this as a continuation of what used to be our A's Fan Radio listening base back in the day. You've always known the drill that, hey, I'm just like one of y'all. Life gets in the way and throws monkey wrenches into things. So I like to stick to trying to do this show on its once every 2 week schedule, but sometimes things happen and prevents us from doing that. But definitely looking forward to trying to get back onto schedule with things and keeping things normal. On that note, on behalf of Tad Dellinger III and Donnie Knucklehead Hudson, this is Keith Salminen signing off from Dub 6 Studios for this 50th edition of the Bear Raid. Y'all take care and enjoy what is left of your Thanksgiving evening, post-Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving weekend, whatever the hell it is, depending on what you're listening to. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. The views and opinions of our cast, our guests, and our listeners are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the University of California, Cal Athletics, the ACC, or the NCAA. Thank you all again for tuning in. Be sure to join us again for the next edition of the show, tentatively scheduled for December the 7th. Until then, and as always, take care, stay blue, stay gold, and as always, roll on, you Bears! Take care, everybody. See you on December the 7th for show number 51.